So hello,
Hello.
welcome to the Digital Music Masters Show,
Episode 5.
episode 5. We are live, and in today's show we are talking about analog versus digital.
Analog versus digital.
So for those people at home, Christopher, could you explain what we mean, or what is analog and what is digital? What's the difference?
That's actually a really good question. Because it's just not as simple as analog is a medium or digital is a medium. There's different mediums within that. You know, there's tape, which is an analog medium. There's vinyl, which is an analog medium.
CD?
CD is not an analog medium.
Digital, okay.
It's digital. Yeah, I mean, it's not as simple as, is one better than the other, because there are variables within them. However, where this debate does come up quite often is what sounds better? And even that is borderline redundant as an argument. So before all of this digital stuff happened, let's talk about a master or a mix or something like that.
Okay.
All of that stuff would be stored on tape, would be stored on an analog medium, and then be mastered to an analog medium like vinyl or tape or whatever. We used to buy tape. I remember buying tape.
Question from Phil Jones, because this is a live Q&A question as well. So if you have any questions whilst watching the stream, just drop it in and we'll try and answer it as we go along.
Yeah, because I'll just waffle.
So Phil Jones says, would you say a lot of music production spans both?
All audio or music reproduction spans both. So what I mean by reproduction is taking recorded audio and the reconstruction, the playback of it. Okay, so even though you play it on iTunes or Spotify or SoundCloud, it's getting converted to analog on the output, your sound card or whatever, and that analog signal is sent down a cable into your amplifier or your speakers. They might have a built-in amplifier. And then that energy gets converted to acoustic energy. And that's actually how we hear music, we don't ever actually hear digital or analog. We hear acoustic, really. Otherwise, we can't. These only respond to acoustic.
Okay.
The acoustic medium, So it gets converted to analog from the output, from the digital to analog converter, your SoundCloud, down that cable into your amp, and the amp sends it to the speakers, and the speakers convert it to acoustic. So your speakers or your headphones,
one of these things. That's
the digital to analog converter, or the other way around as well. Just to throw that massive spanner into the whole argument, on a very philosophical level, you never really actually hear analog or digital or whatever. These things don't actually materialize as sound. They're mediums for the storage and the reproduction and the transfer of what becomes sound.
Okay. Here's a question for you. You get a lot of people in kind of the sound design scenes and the music production scenes that say analog synths can give a different sound, or analog synths can be better than digital synths. How do you answer that?
Better is subjective, completely subjective.
Would you say it just adds saturation, or?
So at best we can generalize. So, well, first of all, the okay, let's talk about synths. So a synthesizer, when you play a soft synth, right? Unless
soft synth, you mean one on a piece of software?
A piece of software, or a digital synthesizer,
Alchemy or whatever.
Yeah, like something in Logic or something like that. Unless it's programmed to not do so, it will play exactly the same. It will do the same thing every single time, unless it's got stuff inside that is designed for it not to do that. The thing with digital is the numbers are the numbers, the maths is the maths, because that's what digital is really. It's just number crunching, you know, and it's the same thing every single time, unless it's designed specifically not to be the same thing every single time. But even that is within the algorithmic limitations or possibilities of the digital format. Analog is a bit more random, a bit more analog's a bit more random. It's got lots of variables. It's never exactly the same thing twice.
Okay.
Because it's transistors and, you know, components and all of these things that are subject to the world.
Okay.
You know?
So we've got a question here from Prank IT. So I'm Thomas George and this is Christopher Carvalho. We're currently working on a project together called Digital Music Masters, which is one of the main reasons we're on this show. And also so we can answer your questions. So hello.
Hello.
So if you are interested in checking out Digital Music Masters, this is the kind of program that we're running at the moment. So today's episode, if you just joined us now, here with Christopher Carvalho, and we're going to talk about analog versus digital, or answer any questions that you might have that are music related.
So going back to a real world example, why people say analog is better, because okay, putting the romance of it aside, like it's you know, it's always a little bit different theoretically, and there's saturation and random variables, and like on a mixing console there can be crosstalk between the things.
It could just be a bit old and rusty, and it could just give
like
sound.
It just adds something that you know, it's less clinical, whatever. But you know, it's easy to say that now that we are in the digital era, and like I did a video before with Gerald Deschênes, and he asked me about analog versus digital, and I said analog wasn't cool until digital became a thing. You know, now it's cool. Yeah. And it's kind of the same old story. Like, we put it on a pedestal now, you know, because it's finite, it's expensive, it's just awesome to look at, you know, like big reel-to-reel tape machines, massive mixing consoles, and there's the tactile nature of it. It's hands-on, it's there, it's not inside a computer.
You can't save a preset, you have to manually sell it.
But there you go, there's all the practical elements of digital. Now, in terms of the storage of information, so this information being music, the storage of information, I don't think anyone can dispute that today's digital is superior. It just is. Yeah. Like it's, well, first of all, like, as long as you back up your stuff, it will last forever. Yeah. Right?
Well, these break.
Also, you can fit a lot of stuff inside that.
Yeah.
Increasingly more so, and cheaply. And it's exactly the same thing every time, as long as it doesn't get corrupt or something like that.
But because it's the exact same thing every single time.
Yes, but as a storage of media, as a you know, like old analog tape masters, they have a shelf life. It might be very long, but they have a shelf life. The numbers, but in digital, the numbers are the numbers.
So let's go on to a question. So from Prank IT, bro, I have a small music production studio and I want to make a large production house. Can you please tell me how much it costs to set up my production house?
Work backwards. So know exactly what you want to be doing in that place, and then work backwards into the things that you need to accomplish those things. There's no limit to how much money someone can spend on music equipment. So you know, and there's no, this is the full solution.
What do you mean by large production house? Is this to record a band, like a rock band, or is this to just record vocals and to make electronic music? Let's not answer that one.
You know, but for that question, there's lots of information online about that sort of thing. But you know, that's as far as I'm prepared to go with that, I think.
Yeah, it depends. Let us know what you want to do. If you want to record like a rock band, if you want to have, when you say production house, you mean like an entire studio? Sky's the limit, really. I guess the more you spend, generally, the better the equipment.
Figure out what you want to achieve. Figure out a budget.
Yeah. Oh man, we got some great recordings with just this SM58 the other day.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be the best stuff ever, as long as you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to set up a production house, I assume you want to be providing a service to artists or whatever. Figure out what you want to do within that. figure out what it's going to look like, figure out how much it's going to cost, how much you're going to charge or whatever, and find a budget. Like, if you don't work to a budget, you'll never figure it out, because like I said, infinite money, I will buy infinite music equipment. It just doesn't stop.
So there's a question from Sam Yak. I'm going to abbreviate this. So if you want to put stuff on YouTube and other third-party sites, I'd say put most of your content on YouTube for free, and if people like it, they might check out your courses, they might check out your other products or services. But a lot of it's about giving value. There's a book by Gary Vaynerchuk called Jab, 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 Right Hook, which basically means put out stuff for free, and then if you do want to ask someone for a sale or, I don't know, a service, then if people feel more reciprocal to do that. So
we appreciate you asking the question. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It's just a bit sort of difficult to answer in absolute terms, but figure out what you want to do, why you want to do this, and then kind of like with Prank IT.
Thanks, Prank IT. So I'm Thomas George, and this is Christopher Cavalier, not Thomas and George. I guess it does kind of, they are two first names, so I can see where you're coming from. But yeah, like, if you, I want to know what you want to do. Do you want to record vocals? Is it drum kits? Is it, like, if you want to record a piano, obviously you need to buy a piano, which can be quite expensive, but there's a lot of stuff you can get reasonably cheap, like a Shure SM58. Shure SM57 is a great microphone you can use on almost anything, and that sounds pretty good. It's like under $100.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a room, a computer, an interface, and an SM58, and some speakers, and some headphones, and a bit of room treatment, all of which will cost you under $1,000, you can start a business. You can start a production house. You might be limited. You can't record drums in there necessarily, but you can do stuff. When you say production house, if what you want to do is start a business helping people with music production,
I presume it's recording bands and artists, but it could be making library music.
Yeah, or it could just be vocals. It could be rappers.
Vocals, yeah.
Rappers only need one mic.
Yeah.
And they've got a beat, and that's it. And boom, you're open.
I'd start off with just one item at a time and make sure.
Yeah.
Don't break the bank, but make sure it's high quality. And have a look on eBay, Gumtree, Craigslist, wherever you are, and you can get some great stuff secondhand.
Yeah, as well. Buy one thing at a time and try and immediately start getting value out of that one thing. Yeah. If you've got an SM58, a Focusrite, and a computer, start getting value out of it. Start recording with it.
Yeah.
Start there, and then once you're completely comfortable with that, you know exactly how good that stuff is, what the limitations of it are. Then ascend from there, but otherwise, that's the best advice I can give right now on that.
Yeah. So analog versus digital.
Okay, so going back, so as a medium, digital is superior. It just is. Now, however, you can't to get it onto digital, you have to go through analog, right? So voice, microphone, interface, Logic Pro or Ableton or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Voice is acoustic energy. Microphone converts it to analog energy.
Yeah.
Focusrite converts it into numbers. It becomes a track in Logic Pro.
Any other audio interfaces are available?
Other audio interfaces are available. Hi, John.
Hey, John.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other. So that's kind of why it's redundant.
Well, you need the audio interface because it converts the audio signal to digital. Unless you're recording on tape. I know Foo Fighters record a lot of their albums on tape. It doesn't have to be digital.
Sure. But even if it is digital, it becomes analog and then it becomes acoustic every single time. It's not like the digits go in here to the brain, bypass the ear.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great. If I could just interface my iPhone to my brain and then transmit music via that way, but there would have to be some sort of digital to brain converter.
So we've got a question from Samyak. Is it really important to get an analog mixer for a studio? Will it make my stuff sound more professional?
No, you will make your stuff sound more professional with best practices and much practice. But an analog desk won't automatically make your stuff sound more professional.
I would say it depends on what you're doing as well. If you're just recording electronic music in your spare bedroom or in your house or wherever, it's not really much point.
If you're
recording a drum kit or recording a whole band, then it can help.
Outside of practical reasons such as those, no. Practical reasons, yes. Maybe you need to mix down some inputs down into a stereo or into two inputs on your interface or whatever to go inside the computer as digital. But the mindset where I assume Samyak is coming from, which many people do, I think we've all been there, analog will make it better.
Yeah.
No.
It will make you look cool.
It'll make you look great. Your Instagram will pop, but like,
expensive way of doing it.
But it's not gonna.
Yeah.
It's not gonna. And all of this distortion and stuff like that, all of that is available to you inside digital. At the end of the day, digital can capture it, so it can create it.
Yeah.
You can
make like saturating plugins, stuff like
that. There's even digital audio workstations such as Harrison Mixbus, which actually from the ground up emulates analog console and stuff like that. Like every channel, everything is emulating analog. It's not plugins. The DAW is doing it.
Well, you've got the Waves one that emulate SSL desks.
Yeah, you've got all of those lovely things.
Yeah. The new Logic updates.
The Logic updates have got saturators. All of that lovely stuff.
Can you explain to people what a saturator is?
Is a type of distortion, but it's just a soft distortion. When we say distortion in the context of audio and music production, we mean take waveform, deform it in some way, and then out of that comes the waveform plus some extra harmonic content,
So another question from Samyak: how can I utilize my small space, like a bedroom, to make it a home studio? Any advice? Good question.
Okay, so first of all, work out what your home studio is for. There's lots of types of studios. A studio can be for vocals, a studio can be for just mixing, a studio can be just for producing EDM. All of those have different they kind of have different requirements. So figure out, if you can enlighten us as to exactly what you want to achieve in that studio, then
I'm presuming you want to make electronic music and record vocals. That's kind of the most common thing now, but
sure. If you want to record vocals,
wardrobe, clothes hanging up.
Well, not even that. Just a microphone, a cardioid microphone, so it's picking up from in front. Maybe a mattress or something like that. If the wall is very, if the wall is creating reflections.
Get yourself one of these if you want. Like a little reflection filter.
That's for the other side.
For the other side, it depends on the mic though.
If I'm here, maybe a mattress or a duvet or something on this wall, because it's going to be picking up from the front. My own stuff and most recording vocals. Yeah, so treat your room in terms of recording, but also treat your room in terms of monitoring.
Yeah.
And just get some really good advice from people, learn about it, and get some advice from an acoustics company.
So it's a combination of get some advice via a professional, also just experiment.
Yeah,
you never really know where's going to be the best place to record.
On the recording side, experiment.
Yeah.
On the monitoring side, that's a bit different.
Yeah.
But on the recording side, definitely experiment, because you don't want to kill the sound necessarily either. You don't want to kill, in terms of the liveliness or the reverberance of the room. It's not all about making the most dead sound all of the time. Yeah,
I guess for doing voiceovers, you kind of want a dead sound. But for a vocal recording or singing, you're probably going to put reverb on it anyway. You might as well try and get some nice natural reverb if you can.
Yeah, and to be honest, mixing a completely dead vocal is actually quite difficult sometimes. Without some liveliness, it can be harder to mix because of that, because it just has no place in the stage, Anyway, so going back to the whole analog thing. So, as a medium, so there's no analog medium that is superior in terms of dynamic range, I'll explain that in a sec, and frequency response than your most basic 24-bit file. So dynamic range in a digital file, like a format, like a WAV file at 24-bit, the dynamic range in terms of the highest amplitude value it can store and the lowest amplitude value that it can store is 144 decibels. Analog can't do that. There's no analog that I know of, right, that can do that. And if it did exist, it would be really expensive, and really limited, and you can't back it up to whatever. But and you can't send it over the internet to someone on the other side of the world either.
So what? Here's
and you got to look after it.
Let's stir up a little bit. Say you have an analog synthesizer, and you sample the different notes and the different velocities into a sampler like the EXS-24 or the sampler in Logic. Will that sound the same? As using the analog synth?
Not just for reasons that are because of analog either.
Let's hear. So what's the pros and cons of using the sampler rather than actually using the analog instrument?
Oh, where do I start?
We don't script these, by the way.
We don't actually.
None of these questions are scripted.
The only thing we came up with the idea just a couple of hours ago of doing analog versus digital.
So yeah, the difference, the pros and cons of using a sampler, sampling a certain synth, versus the actual synth.
It depends. I mean, like, it depends. If you someone might consider the fact that it's the same every single time a pro. Someone might consider that a con. Do you know what I mean?
Well, for example, the EXS-24, you can stack up different velocities. So you could have 24, well, maybe not 24, several different velocities when you're playing it. But it's still not going to sound the same.
It's not going to sound the same. But the sampler won't sound the same as the synth, but the synth won't sound the same as the sampler either. You know, when push comes to shove is, actually, what do I like more?
But you can do a lot of stuff in the sampler.
You can do, there's not a lot of limitations in the software synthesizer sampler these days. Yeah. You can just stack everything up. Ridiculous variables, you know. I mean, but the synth, you know, I think in terms of sonics, the whole analog versus digital thing is silly. But in terms of practical, it's not silly. Mm-hmm. You know, practically playing an analog synthesizer on stage is superior than doing it with a laptop and a MIDI keyboard.
Why?
Because it's not just going to shut. It can shut down, but it's not just. You know,
I've had a laptop shut down on stage.
Do you know what I mean? But a synth is a synth. If you only want to do what the synth does, why would you do it on a laptop? Yeah. Then on the synth, you know.
If one use Ableton Live, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. But even then, you could route the synth into Ableton. But you know, a synth, you could just pull it. You know, in its case, take it away, plug it into anything. There's no weird digital software licensing, compatibility, clock issues, all of that.
Or just randomly crash.
You take a synthesizer, you plug it into the PA, and boom.
To be fair, laptops now are pretty quick. About 10 years ago, if you want to perform on stage with a laptop, there's a chance it's going to crash. Now,
but even with a laptop, you still, like, something random can happen. You know, digital's can be actually quite random, believe it or not. But yeah. They're two different mediums. You can't, like, it's silly to compare them. You know what I mean?
So the question from Samyak, he said he's going to start his YouTube channel soon related to music. Any advice on what to expect? I mean, how to be motivated for pro-social work, putting work out for free. Thanks. I would say make videos on stuff you enjoy doing. That it doesn't feel like work. I guess what me and Chris are doing is work, but it's really we're just having a chat and kind of documenting and answering your questions. Doesn't feel like I'm digging a hole or something, doing something difficult. So I'd say do stuff you enjoy. Yeah. And have a setup you can record quickly. For example, here we're using a piece of software called Wirecast. We've got a light up there. I'll show you up here. So we've got a light up there. We're not using that camera. We just got a little USB camera here. We've got a couple of lapel wireless mics. And it's pretty much good to go. It takes a few minutes to set up and then just hit record. The last thing you want is setting up all the lighting, setting everything up. So when you are in that mood to record, you can't do it. So I'd say have a setup where you can just quickly record wherever you are. Have a designated area. Like this is a little space just for recording. It's not the most glamorous place, but it's just a space we can record whenever we want. So there's no like. The thing about hiring studios, cool, it looks nice, it looks great, but when you want to just kind of record on the fly, you've got to book a studio, you've got to drive down there. So have a space in your house or where you live where you can just record whenever you want. So when the idea comes to you, you can just do it. And make sure you've got equipment that's readily available. So I've got several different cameras over here, so you can just grab them and go whenever you want. The other thing is get an external microphone. I've seen loads of videos online on YouTube where people don't use an external microphone. If you see this one there, it just makes it sound a lot. But it sounds really stupid, but I've seen, how many videos have you seen where people don't mic themselves up?
Too much.
Yeah. So the main thing is, do what you enjoy. Samyak, and make sure you're in a position where you can film whenever you want, so it doesn't feel like a chore. I've spent many times like lugging cameras around, lugging tripods around to find the perfect shot. When in reality, it's more just the content and putting yourself out there.
Because if you don't enjoy it, you won't get out of bed in the morning to do it.
Yeah.
And that when push comes to shove, it's the consistency, it's the daily effort that makes the difference.
So Heavy Metal Mixer 91, John, if you basically, what kind of analog equipment would you use for mastering? So if you want to answer this. Chris is a master engineer.
I would. What would I use?
Did you use an outboard compressor? Or was it
not dynamics. Probably not dynamics. EQ, yeah.
Okay.
I'll probably, I wouldn't mind using a big Pultec or something like that.
What's a Pultec?
It's just a massive mastering EQ.
Okay.
Lots of dials, lots of knobs. It's all just, this band, that band, this dip, whatever. If you have analog equipment,
you're mostly in the box, aren't you?
I am in the box, and if even if I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't use analog if it slowed me down.
Yeah,
I definitely wouldn't do that if it slowed me down. One thing that I wouldn't mind is the ability to come out in analog and then go back in, not necessarily to use outboard gear, but so I can produce an analog signal and then re-record it or print it back into digital at a higher sample rate, higher bit depth, and that sort of thing. But I don't really care that much about it. Like I don't ever feel limited by what sound I can create in a master. Inside digital, but saying that, I've pretty much always been digital. But I wouldn't mind, a rack mounted EQ and outboard EQ or something like that. That'd be quite nice.
Well, one of the main disadvantages of having analog gear is it's big and heavy
and expensive.
It's expensive.
If
you're all in the box,
maintain,
you can do it pretty much just off a laptop. So if you're traveling, if you're going somewhere else, you can do the vast majority of it off your laptop, which is pretty cool. Obviously, stuff like MIDI keyboards help. But you can get loads of. I've got quite a few different portable little MIDI devices and stuff. So
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't mind an analog chain, even to do things like convert it to analog, increase gain, clip the converters on the way back in. I like stuff like that. Just to see what I get. Howie Weinberg, my friend Will Bozza, he works for Howie Weinberg. He's one of the most renowned mastering engineers. He provides his clients 3 different types of master, all run through different gear because they all have different tone, different sound. Okay. He's like, what one do you prefer? Yeah, but it's because he's got gear though. Like he's got ridiculous gear. But even if I had, if money no object, I wouldn't rush.
I quite like that. 3 different masters and see which one you prefer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot more time and effort involved doing it.
Well, he does it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
He does it pretty quickly, but yeah. I haven't really thought about it, John, to be honest with you. Mastering for me, I don't know, it might be the type of mastering engineer that I am, but mastering for me just isn't... There's... if for me, it's not... Howie Weinberg said mastering is like Photoshop, and I get it, like Photoshop for audio, and there's a really basic analogy that works. But it's just, but not to the for me, it's not to the extent of changing the sound.
You can do a lot of warping in Photoshop.
That's what I mean. Like I wouldn't want to. I don't go
huge
that far
biceps or whatever.
I don't go, But I'm the way that I conduct a mastering service is I get involved quite early anyway. So I'm already quite vocal in the process of the production of the music, even though it's still at mix stage and it's not at mastering stage yet. So, but different mastering loads of different mastering engineers work differently. Some people go to people like Howie Weinberg because he will crank up some converters and get some real harmonics going. I'm not that type of mastering engineer. I'm the quality assurance mastering engineer, and if there's a problem with resonance or something like that, I'll dive in with the cleanest, most linear digital EQ, which is obviously TDR Nova. You know that, John. I go in and I solve that problem, and then I don't do any more than that. I don't do any more than necessary. But other mastering engineers were like, yeah, let's give it some flavour, you know, let's
It's not your
make
thing.
it so much more colourful, and people know that of me as a mastering engineer before they even use me, because I just kind of communicate that out via my brand. So, you know.
Yeah.
But if they ask me, oh, are you gonna be able to do that? I'm like, I can do it. You know, I've got all of the tape simulators. I've got plenty of saturation available to me. It's just not the type of mastering service that I personally conduct.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, so thank you for everyone that's watching the stream so far. We thought we'd let you know we're actually launching a test group today.
Yes.
It's only going to be for the next few days, so if you do want to get access to the Digital Music Masters Academy, full price is $49, but we're actually just launching a test subject for the first month. Is 99 cents.
Yeah.
Cancel any time. So 99 cents for the first month, and after that it's $49 a month.
Yeah.
And you get access to all of our online courses, so stuff like mastering, sound design, Logic Pro, Ableton Live, Music Theory, and a few other ones as well. And you also get invited in our private group calls. So we have a certain number of people. We're only letting a few people in this just because it's literally our test group. So if you are interested, check out the link in the description below, where you can be one of the first few people in our test group. It's just 99 cents for the first month. And yeah, it's only going to be for a few days, and after that we're going to put it back up to $49 a month. So if you are interested, you continue to learn with us, check it out. If you've got any more questions about analog versus digital,
or anything else music production,
anything else music production related.
That's
so Chris,
fine.
if you could have any synth in the world,
some Moog synth.
Moog. I know.
Moog people.
I like the mini one. The mini ones are pretty cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like...
just because they're so big, the mini one, I like just the size of the mini ones.
Oh no, actually, scrap that. I would buy... So what's the question?
What synth would you want?
What synth?
Analog.
The synth that I'd want is the synth that I create in modular.
Oh, I was going to say
modular.
Create your own synth.
Yeah, modular.
Okay.
So like I would buy all of... If you gave me like 100 grand or something like that, I'd build this massive beast. It would be like a wall.
Would you personally build it? Would you hire a team of engineers?
No, I'd do it myself.
Okay.
That's the modular experience. You change it every day. You patch different things, different ways.
Oh, so you have all the little mini patches together and patch them?
Yeah, it's modular.
Yeah,
so
I have seen. There's a guy
you just do all of this.
Called Cam Diaz, I've seen him do that. Another question from Heavy Metal Mixer. Can you hear oversampling? Do you like working with it enabled?
It depends why the oversampling is happening. So it depends actually. Like, so there are different applications for oversampling. So many plugins like True Peak limiters oversample. Okay, so some EQs oversample because they can do a higher order of maths to have the effect on the audio at a greater fidelity, and then it gets downsampled again in the output of the plugin. So like a True Peak limiter. So you know, where do I start? Okay, so a True Peak limiter basically estimates what the true peak value will be when converted to analog, because that's going to be higher than the highest sample in digital. This is getting really technical. I'm trying really hard to make it less technical than it is. I promise. So it has to oversample. So it has to take a 44.1 file, 8x sample it, you know, ridiculous sample rates, just to plot where that is, adjust the setting of the limiter, and then sample it back down after it's changed again, back down to 44.1. Can I hear that process? No, if it's designed properly. If I can hear that process, it's doing it incorrectly. That's that. So if it's doing it for those reasons, which are the only real reasons that I can think of right now, I shouldn't be able to hear it. However, okay, so now let's go to another thing. Some people think 96 kilohertz, when I convert to my 44.1 to 96 kilohertz, it sounds, because it sounds different and they can hear something on the top end, they think, oh, they just go, oh, it sounds better. I can hear that thing that I couldn't hear before. However, the most likely reason for that happening is an actual inaccuracy of the playback system that they're using. Like if your converters aren't working properly, it will produce a distortion really high up there, like 20k, or close to, and people go, and sometimes that harmonic folds back into distortion into below 20 kilohertz, and then because people were expecting it to sound possibly better, when they hear it's different or they hear a new harmonic up there, they think, oh, that's better, and it's not. Intermodulation distortion, that's it, Chris. So yeah, like it will produce a harmonic above 20k, and then that harmonic will create foldback distortions, which is harmonics back down below 20k.
Okay, so moving on, another question from Samyak. Can you talk something about finishing a mix? How do we know our mix is finished? Honestly, There's never think it's... With the songs that I create, I never think it's finished. I normally just think it's good enough. I'm like, it's good enough. And then I give it to a mastering engineer to master. And once they've mastered it, it's done. Otherwise, it's never going to be finished. There's always stuff you can tweak. There's always stuff you can mess around. Maybe have like a friend to listen to your music and tell you if they think it's done or not. Another pair of ears. For me personally, I don't think it's ever done.
Yeah, I mean, because the right mix is subjective,
If you're a perfectionist, it's never really going to be done, really.
Yeah. You just have to commit. That's it. Work with a mastering engineer. That's another good reason to use a mastering engineer, because they can help you commit. They can help you, someone like Chris can say, I think maybe this should change, or I think it's great, it's ready for mastering. I'll happily take it from here. Just having that net.
Well, in my head, I'm more like, I've paid for a mastering engineer. I've got it sorted. I'm not going to change it now. So that's how I see it. So it just makes me finish it.
Glenn from Spectre Media Group, if I've got that acronym correct.
There is no finished mixes.
You only abandon them. Truth.
Yeah.
You only commit to them, yeah.
There might be some people who think it's finished, but for me, yeah.
Did you go to a music school, or did you learn everything from the internet? Both.
Both, yeah. I did go to music school or music college, music university, but I probably learned probably as much, if not more, off the internet.
I've been at school for a lot. I've been at school ever since I left school.
Yeah.
I
think the internet's great for learning stuff now. But
in our biased opinion. Online course, content creators.
Yeah, but both.
No, absolutely. But like
we did a video about this yesterday, didn't we?
I also read books. I also watch YouTube. I also read academic papers. I also refresh some of my memory on some of my old work from university. You don't have to choose one.
Yeah.
You don't have to choose one method of learning. I get so much information out of podcasts and stuff like that, Going to audio school definitely gave me some, foundational principles in which to build on from, which might have been a lot more difficult to attain just on YouTube. However,
the community's good at a kind of institution, because you're involved with similar like-minded people, so you're going to be talking about it, you're going to be bouncing ideas, you're going to be collaborating. If you're just sat at home on a laptop, it's not quite the same. There's stuff like Facebook groups, but I recommend a lot of people go to a local meetup group. Like in Leeds, there's the Ableton Live group, if you're in Leeds, and stuff like that. So go to these local groups and meet up there, and it's kind of similar to university in that aspect. So Sammy, it's got another question. What topics would you recommend every pro producer should be familiar with? I would say music theory. It's very important.
100%.
So you should know what difference between the major chord and minor chords, the scales and stuff like that. You should learn how to play the piano, because it will come in handy. You should learn the language of sound design and synthesis. I would say you should know how to mix, and you should also know how to master. I'm not a master engineer, but I know the basics of mastering. So when I do work with a master engineer, I can talk the language, I kind of know, and they respect you a lot more as well. So I'd say, music theory, music composition. This sounds ridiculous, I'm going to list loads of stuff. Music theory, music composition, music arrangement, synthesis, sound design, mixing, mastering, audio engineering.
Just everything relevant.
Yeah, unfortunately. You don't have to be amazing at them, just know them good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't have to want to become a mastering engineer to learn mastering and get value out of learning mastering. You don't have to consider pursuing a career in acoustic engineering to learn how acoustics works, how sound behaves in a space. all of this is relevant. And at the end of the day, we're talking about, you know, sound going in and sound coming out. All of that stuff is relevant to all of us.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I don't know how old anyone here is, but you know, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time in a day to learn, let alone a week, let alone a month, let alone a year. You know, just pursue learning.
So that can sound quite intimidating, all the stuff we just said, but at the same time, I'd start little bits at a time.
Yeah.
The stuff like the main things: go to meetups, meet like-minded people, Facebook groups, online courses.
Yeah. People will always be your best resource.
Yeah.
People, absolutely, all of the time, every single time. You know, I learn from my friends, my peers, my mentors, my clients. I learn from you guys. You know.
Oh, cool. So Samyak, you already know about piano, so you know classical, jazz, blues. Yeah. I think blues theory and jazz is a lot more relevant than classical music if you want to make contemporary electronic music personally, but classical is still useful to know. So I presume you know about arrangement and composition as well.
Cool.
Then if you already kind of got the piano side down and the arrangement and composing side, I'd have a look at mixing, mastering and sound engineering.
Yeah, learn how audio works, like how, you know, how we get from A to B to C, everything that happens from this, like I said before, down the microphone, what is happening, how did that happen? Because it's awesome. Like, how did that, it went down and then into the converter, what happened there, how does that even come out on the other end accurately? It's amazing. Learn it. Because when you do learn it, you'll think, you know, you'll have more, you know, you'll be able to appreciate what you're doing more and possibly get better results, you know.
Some stuff's more fun to learn than others. I enjoy learning music theory. A lot of people find that boring. I enjoy learning piano scales and stuff. So it depends. Chris obviously enjoys like audio engineering.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you enjoy doing as well.
People like Chris here, Chris Pavey, people like myself, the stuff that me and him find fascinating are boring. Like, they are nerdy, most boring stuff. You know, Chris and I could sit around and talk about, you know, this stuff till 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, but that's because we're nerds. But that's why we're mastering engineers. Super nerds.
Well, you need a nerd to do if you want it done well, don't you?
Yeah, you need nerds. You need people who are obsessed about this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Obsessed about it.
Right, so what are we talking about? Digital versus analog. Anyone got any more questions? Drop them below before we head off.
Chris Pavey knows a lot about digital to analog because he actually does like tape mastering, restoration and stuff like that.
Okay, this is Chris, who's
Chris
on the live
Pavey
stream.
here. Not this Chris. This is Christopher Carvalho.
Or George. Apparently.
Yeah.
Someone thought it was Thomas and George. Yeah. To be
fair,
fair,
I could be a George.
I can see how they got that.
Yeah,
you do look kind of George-like.
And the thing says Thomas George, and then there's the two of us.
So
you know,
we're sat this way.
That's totally understandable.
Ant and Dec. If anyone's from the UK, you'll get that.
No. Yeah. Not Ant and Dec. Never Ant and Dec.
So yeah, anyone's got any more questions about anything audio, composition, theory, mastering, mixing, let us know, or music production in general. Have you been to the Musical Instrument Museum in Belgium?
No.
That's got some cool old synths.
Should we go?
I've already been.
Go again.
Go again, yeah. So anyone watching this, have you been to Musical Instrument Museum in Brussels? I'm a fan of it. It's got some funky... I'll show you some stuff on my Instagram. It's got some funky pianos and old synths.
Noted.
Old school. It's nice.
Check out Thomas George's Instagram.
Yeah.
At Thomas George Music.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not really much of an Instagram guy. You're all about Instagram.
Love Gram.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
You're always taking hipster photos everywhere.
Yeah, it's because I'm a hipster.
Yeah. I'm not really that Instagrammy, to be fair.
You can take the boy out of Shoreditch, but you'll still have to Instagram every latte and coffee bean and thing that he does.
So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What else? What else do you want to talk about, Thomas George?
I think we've pretty much covered analog versus digital. Let's answer some more questions. How many years did it take to learn all this production stuff?
Ask me again in 50 years.
I would say the amount of years doesn't really matter. It's more how dedicated you are.
The
But
dot filter.
I don't know. I've been doing music since I was a child.
Oh, the Snapchat dog filler.
Snapchat.
The Instagram stories dog filler. No, I don't do
You wanted to be an audio engineer since you're like 11 or something? 12 or something?
I started, my interest in music technology started about when I was 14. I decided that it was 2 years later that I decided that I wanted to learn sound.
Okay.
You know, like how it works.
Okay.
Why is it a waveform? What is in, you know, all of that stuff?
I would say, Samek, it doesn't really matter how long it takes you to do stuff. It's more how dedicated you are. Because you could do stuff on the side and kind of dabble in the sidelines, but it doesn't really mean
But there's infinite.
You're doing it.
There's infinite stuff to learn. Like any
Jimi Hendrix is pretty good on the guitar, and he died at age 27.
Yeah, and, but even the top pro mastering engineers are always learning. Everyone's always learning. That doesn't stop. There's too much to learn. You can't learn everything in one lifetime.
So Simone. Sorry. Who's taller, Thomas or Chris? Sorry, I have no real. I'm actually I'm taller, but Chris is sat on a high. I have to give him a higher chair to get to my height.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
So if you see any of the videos of me and him stood next to each other, I actually have to open my legs and bend down a bit because otherwise I'd tower over him, and it really annoys Chris.
That's not.
Anyway,
it doesn't annoy me. It doesn't actually annoy me. It's fine.
So anyway,
Thomas is taller, but it doesn't affect me.
So if you have any more music production related questions, or Chris will lose it.
Yeah. Whatever, man. I don't.
I'm not bothered anyway.
I'm perfectly normal height, like 5'10". That is like the mean average height.
5'10", 5'7".
I'm not 5'7", dude. I no. Like even when I was 15, I was like 5'9". Dude, I'm like 5'10".
Okay.
All right. I'm 5'10", man.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. For doing music production, it doesn't matter if you're 2 foot or if you're 8 foot. It's irrelevant. I just do it because it annoys him. Anyway,
it doesn't annoy me.
Let's talk about something a bit more valuable. So yeah, I recommend having a look at the Music Industry Museum if you're into some old tech. It's pretty cool. Not going to answer that.
That's a bit public, honestly. And to be well, I'll tell you what. You know, when you're self-employed, there's no absolute answer to that anyway.
Yeah,
so
depends.
It depends.
Cool. So I hope you find this stream useful so far. If you've got more questions, leave them below. Thank you everyone that's watching so far. Like I said earlier, we have launched the Digital Music Masters Academy today, and we're having the launch offer. It's only 99 cents for the first month, and normally it's $49 a month. Cancel any time, so the first month's 99 cents. After that, it's $49 a month. We get access to all of our online courses, which include mastering, film music, sound design, synthesis, Logic Pro, Ableton Live, music theory, load of them, and you get the weekly group calls with us as well if you're interested.
Yep.
It's only going to be up for the next few days, so if you don't want to get this almost free first month deal, get involved now.
Yep. See you later, John.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, John. Around.
So yeah, we're going to head off in a few minutes. Any more questions, I'll leave them now. We need to have a topic for next week as well. If people are in the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/Digital Music Masters, feel free to suggest what we should talk about next week, because we're always open to suggestion. We might do something a bit more compositionally related next week.
Yeah, so I don't just nerd out over the whole thing.
Cool, no worries there, Sam.
No worries. It's
no worries, man.
Fine. There's no harm in asking questions, it's just... You don't like it, so
I'm curious, what kind of videos do you want to start doing? Because building YouTube is good fun, but don't expect people to follow you straight away. It does take a while. At one point, I had more videos than subscribers. I think I had 70 videos up and I had like 40 subscribers. So it takes a while. But it's not really about how many subscribers you could get. If it is, I don't know.
Yeah, it depends why you're doing it.
Probably do like, well, whatever cool game there is at the moment, any viral game or whatever. Yeah. Chris, any more final thoughts on digital versus analog?
Oh, actually, yeah. So what matters is actually what you're putting on it. You know what I mean? Is the you know, a lot of people. It's easy. It's easy to talk about. We talk about analog versus digital because it's just easy.
There isn't really a versus. It's a kind of a clickbaity title.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other.
It's not one or the other.
Yeah.
But it's easy to talk about. That's why we talk about it so much, because it's easy. What isn't easy to talk about is how to get the best vocal. Like, not the medium, the content. You know what I mean?
The obvious answer is use a good singer.
Exactly, but it's difficult to talk about that in absolute terms. It's easy to talk about technology because it has absolutes.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to talk about how to make the best music, the stuff that the content that you record onto it. Apart from things like theory and stuff. But
yeah. Cool. Thanks,
you know,
Samyak. I'm glad you enjoyed
our
one
courses.
of my online courses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, so thank you everyone for watching. If any last questions, leave them now. If not, we're going to sign off. Thank you again for everyone joining us. Analog versus digital. The real answer is there isn't really a versus. You can use them both.
Yeah,
they're both great.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
They have different nutritional value and stuff.
Yeah. You can always convert one to the other.
That's not analogous. That doesn't work. The apples and oranges thing doesn't work. I need to find a...
Yeah, so if you do want to give us some suggestions of what you want us to talk about next week, join the Facebook group Digital Music Masters. So search Digital Music Masters. It's free to join. You can ask us questions there, start discussions. Which, yeah, I think it's been pretty useful so far. Thank you for all the support. Thank you everyone who's been watching so far. Any final thoughts?
I'm definitely like 5'10". Like, it's fine.
So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.